Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. In today's video, I will be going over round one of my recent tournament. I played in a tournament recently. I've got a vlog about that. Go check that out after this video. But yeah, this is round one, and I was black. My opponent, I think, was around 1800, I think. Um, and So yeah, let's jump into it. So he opens up with d4, and against d4, you may or may not know, I play the Dutch defense. And then he comes with this move here, um, knight c3, and anyone that plays the Dutch knows that this is quite a tricky move. It doesn't commit to anything. It tries to play e4 as quick as possible, and so that sort of forces a move like this. But it also keeps the option of bishop g5 open. And the bishop g5 lines against the Dutch are some of the most sharp and, I wouldn't say theoretical, but they can get very, very complex and very, very tactical and very um, double edged. And while that does sound like my kind of position, I also think that the reason I play the Dutch is so I can, have a fairly simple opening and then just be very comfortable because not many people play against the Dutch as white when they play d4. So they're not used to it. And so if I can just, stay in my lane and play the moves that I know, then eventually I'll be in a more familiar territory than my opponent. So yeah, I play here, and after this, there are a few moves I can play here. Um, the most common one is d5, preventing this e4 push. But personally, I don't really like it after this exchange. I don't like this pawn structure at all. It's quite weak, I think, and I don't know. I don't know. It's just not for me. It's just not for me personally. So I went with this, which does allow this e4 move, and after takes, um, and then here maybe, um, I feel like this is quite good. I feel like this is fine, definitely. I've got this open F file I can work with. It's probably going to be a castle on opposite sides, maybe fianchetto my light squared bishop this way, and it's kind of like a Queen's Indian. And I feel like this position offers a lot of play for black, which is why I allowed him to play this. But he didn't actually play that in the game. Excuse me. He played knight f3, and so I was like, okay, if you don't want to play e4, then I'm just going to prevent you from ever playing that. And I sort of transposed into a stonewall, as we see here after this, after a3, and then I transposed into this stonewall setup. Now, I've played the stonewall quite a bit. I do prefer the Leningrad Dutch to the stonewall, but I mean, after playing e6, that was kind of out the window anyway. Excuse me. Um, Yeah, and the Stonewall's fine. The Stonewall's a fine opening that like I said, I've played before. So I was fine playing this. I did briefly consider playing c5. The computer prefers c5 a little bit. But I think after, these are just some sample moves. This position, it's quite interesting. It's definitely quite interesting. And it's, like I say, again, very double-edged. Um, maybe just simple development, I think, and this open C file, but then these pieces from white are very active. And like I say, I think I just prefer going into more familiar territory of the Stonewall. And so, yeah, this bishop here, I was debating bringing the bishop here just for this pin, but I think this bishop in general in the Stonewall Dutch is just better placed on d6. So he hops in with the knight. That's fair enough. That's standard. And then he plays h4, and I'm already kind of quaking a little bit. I'm already like, oh my god, he's going to start playing g4 and just have this huge attack. So I develop. I develop with knight b to d7, and then he plays this move, which I found really strange. I think in this position he's got to come g4. Um, and after this, I actually don't know what I'd have played. I actually don't know what I'd have played because maybe what he was scared of was takes in here, but even this, I feel like this is fine. Um, Oh, no, I can't even do that because this pin. Sorry. Um, so yeah, exactly. Like I can't even take there. So maybe I'll take here. But then he gets this. Now he's got this open file on my king. And yeah, I was a little bit worried about this G4 move, but instead he goes Bishop F4, moves the same piece again in the opening, goes against that opening principle that a lot of us know. And so I come Queen C7, develop another piece, put more pressure on this, and now he's got to find something to do with this knight. If he just moves back, for example, after this exchange, he just loses a pawn, and my position's a lot more active. I've got very good control over the center squares as well. And so I think the only two options, he could come here as well, and then after again this exchange is kind of forced, if it allows this. Um, yeah, I mean maybe I wouldn't take in that situation actually. Maybe I'd probably just hop in here to be honest. Um, Yeah, this looks probably a bit better. And then if something like this, I've always got this, you know. But that didn't happen. He took here, which is probably the more sensible move. But it does allow me to connect my rooks already. So that was quite nice. I felt like I had a huge lead in development here. Although I did feel as though my opponent was fine. But after putting this in the computer, it gives it as minus zero point 0.4 to me. So a slight edge, but nothing too significant. Um, and here, obviously, I'm attacking this bishop, so he's got a trade. And again, I feel like this position is fine for me, even though this dark square bishop, which in the Leningrad Dutch is a very important piece. This isn't the Leningrad, in the Stonewall Dutch, well, in any Dutch really, the dark square bishop is often black's best piece. I feel as though this huge lead in development is more than enough compensation for that. So he develops normally, and here I had a few options. I could play for e5, just play e5 straight up in the position. This pawn's kind of backwards, and so after something like this, maybe my queen's quite well placed, I feel. But then I thought maybe he's got queen here, putting his queen on a very active square, and I kind of didn't want to trade queens. It was the first game of the tournament. I kind of wanted to just have a bit more activity. And if I drop back here, I don't know. I feel like his queen's in a very good spot now. And after castle queenside, maybe he can launch a very big attack. Um, so I didn't really want to go for that, and instead I just hopped in with my knight. This felt like a very natural square, it's a very common idea in the Stonewall Dutch to come here because if they take, then this pawn structure is very, very good. You've got this open file as well, which is which is yeah, again, it's very good and offers a lot of play. And this pawn cramps a lot of the position for white as well. And so my opponent comes here. My opponent comes bishop f3. I'm not really sure why, I'll be honest. I think he was maybe trying to get a square for his queen, but he could have come here. And I don't know. And again, I could have come here. I could have come knight takes here. But again, I felt like this knight was a lot better than this knight on this square. And so instead, what I do is I just decide, okay, I'm going to double up. My opponent gets his queen out the way. I double up on the f file. And that now he plays this move. I really didn't think this move was good at all. And for some stupid reason, I didn't see that this just completely traps the bishop. This move just completely traps the bishop. If he tries to come here, all of these squares are taken, and I'm just up a bishop cleanly. But I think I was just playing a bit quick, which for a classical tournament is a little bit stupid. I can't lie. Um, but I also felt that this open file gave me very good play with these rooks. And so he comes here, and I was toying with the idea of coming rook takes f2 and trading the rook for the two rooks for the queen. And I saw this position, and I really wasn't sure because I felt like he could bring his rook in. And after something like this here, um, my bishop's always kind of trapped in this way, like it can't really get out. And I feel like these rooks are coming in after something like, I don't know, queen here maybe. These rooks are always coming in and controlling these open files. And I felt like this just wasn't very good for me. However, going through it with the computer just now, the computer actually recommends this move. h5 in this position. And essentially, what that does is it kicks the bishop off this diagonal. Maybe, for example, takes, because it looks like, on the face of it, like I'm just giving up a pawn. But now comes this move, e5. And if exchange, which I think is realistically the only option, because you can't really be allowing me to take here, I think. After exchange, now I'm threatening the bishop, I'm threatening this pawn. After, I don't know, maybe bishop back here, I can come here and, I'm just picking up these pawns here. And this just looks very, very promising. So I did miss this move, h5 as um, as well as taking this way, which honestly, I don't know how I missed that, but that's fine. So I come back. My idea being that I just want to create a battery on this open file. Come queen here, and maybe also push this way with the e pawn. But then again, this would leave this bishop hanging. Um, Now my opponent plays f4, and I felt like this was a very good move, and the computer gives it as pretty much equal after he gets f4 in, and now this is pretty much just entirely blunts this open f file. So I felt like I had to take on Poussin. Going through it with the computer again, I found that this break c5 was actually quite good. Trying to break open the position, trying to gain control over these center squares again. I think in general it's a very good rule. If you can, if your opponent tries to lock down the position like this, just trying to make another pawn break and open up the center again is a very good idea, which it is what this c5 move does. And I think after again maybe I don't know, castle queenside, either just keep pushing these pawns or maybe an exchange. And I feel again as though this is a very nice position. This is a very nice position. I've got this open C file I can work with. My opponent can't really work with it because he's got a pawn. So it's a semi-open file, I should say. Well, he actually can't take this way, so he'd have to take this way because this pawn would just hang. But then in this position, I've got this, which in this position I wouldn't be able to play. Um, Maybe I come here first, and now I'm threatening this. So after, I don't know, this, now here and takes, and I really like this position. Again, these rooks on this open f file look very monstrous. So that would have been a very good move to have seen, pawn c5. But instead, I just take en passant because I feel I've already got these rooks lined up on this open file, and so it just makes sense. And now my opponent takes. I don't think he could really take with the pawn because again, I had ideas like this, just kicking everything. Um, So he takes this, yeah, he takes this way with the bishop, and I make this break in the center, e5. Now I felt in this position as though if my opponent had played e4, this was quite. I felt like this was the critical move here, and the continuation that I found specifically was if after takes here and then takes this way, and then queen here, threatening maybe something like this. Because again, I don't really want to be trading queens. And then after castles, I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of this position. Yes, I could get this pawn back. Yes, I could probably double up on this open file again. But I don't know. I feel like my opponent's got some targets here, and it gives quite a lot more play. Which is why yeah, which is why I was surprised when my opponent didn't play something like e4 in this position. Instead, he takes and castles. And I feel as though here, after bishop f5, I've got, again, very good control of the center, specifically e4. I've got all three pieces lined up on it. And after rook here, I felt like I had to be in the lead somehow. And so I come here trying to, with the main idea of just trying to open up this f file. So if takes, for example, maybe queen takes, and then, I don't know, something random like this, then obviously I've got rook here. And a continuation that I found specifically was after rook here to exchange, and then queen takes, and then I'd have this move, picking up the pawn. And while white would like to come maybe here, I had this checkmate threat, checkmate in one. And so the queen's kind of tied down, or maybe the king has to come out. Um, and I felt like this position, a pawn up, even though the queens are still on, there's a lot of potential for maybe perpetual. I felt like this was a very good position, and I was very happy going into a position like this. Um, yeah, I felt like this was fine. Again, because of this mate threat on e1, and also these pawns here were quite loose. They look quite loose. So after something maybe like this, I could come here and just start pushing these pawns. I felt. Um, yeah, so my opponent didn't go for that. Instead, um, he plays this move, which I thought was very interesting. And again, I was looking at ideas of just pushing these pawns because I felt like my opponent couldn't really play a move specifically. This pawn's kind of tied down. Maybe he could bring this in this way, this rook. But this pawn's kind of tied down. This rook's kind of tied down because of this threat. This queen's kind of tied down. This bishop's kind of tied down because it's blocking the f file. And so I think just pushing these pawns would have been a very good idea here. But instead, um, I take because I see this. And I felt like this battery was really good, was really, really powerful. But in actuality, it's kind of just a little bit blunt. And so my opponent plays here to protect this rook, which was under attack from the queen. And now I come here to attack the pawn. He just swings his rook back. And now I come here just to put a little bit of pressure on the white queen. And my idea here really is just to break again with d4. So he doesn't allow that. He steps out of the pin, comes here. And now I come back, attack here. He comes rook g3 and offers a draw in this position. And I think for a while, I'm higher rated than this opponent, and it's round one. So I kind of want to push for the win. I kind of want to push for the win because when you draw on round one, it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the tournament. I feel, and I don't know. I felt as though I wanted to push for the win, so I sort of just play a random move now, which I think just surprised him. He spent about 15 minutes after my next move, um, and that was this move, rook e4. Now he in the game he takes, which I think is the critical line, but something else that I felt he could play maybe was this rook g1 move, lining up here on this open file, and I think in this position I'd probably just come back. And then probably just start swinging the rook over. Again, I'm threatening this pawn as well, and yeah, I think in a position like this, I'm 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 probably a bit better here, is what I would say. So my opponent didn't go for that. Instead, he takes, and after this relatively forced series of captures, takes his pawn, and now we're in this position. And I calculated in this position, rook here, rook here. I have to come after this pawn because if here, this lets his king into the game after this, um, and now his king's in the game. Whereas if I instead come this way after this pawn and takes, this is yeah. I felt like this was fine. I felt like this was fine. I had two connected passed pawns, and while my opponent was 3 against 2 on the queen side, I felt like I was pretty sure this is a one end game. I mean, slightly better anyway for black here. Um, but instead of here, I've just miscalculated because I calculated all of that when I played this rookie 4 move. But I didn't see that he had this move, h5, and this was really frustrating because now essentially the idea is after king here, which is played in the game, rook takes. He's still defending this pawn, and so I can't take. And after king here, my opponent makes a mistake and comes rook here, which allows me to take this pawn. Instead, what he should have played was rook here or even rook a5 as well is good here, and essentially that keeps this pawn on. And after I think this is fairly forced defending the pawn, and now he just starts to push these pawns. Maybe here to give his king this way in because my rook's cutting his king off. And in this position, I think this is quite a difficult position for me because these pawns like maybe I can come here, but this isn't very good because it's just one pass pawn by itself. And in the other variation, I'd like to have two pass pawns because obviously two connected pass pawns are a lot stronger than just one. Um, yeah, and so instead, I was quite surprised when my opponent plays rook d8 because it allows me to take this pawn. And here, I felt like I don't know, I felt like it was kind of drawn, but if anything, I had the advantage. And in this position, my plan essentially was just to say my opponent plays something strange like this, literally just to push these pawns. And after something like this, um, again, maybe rook here, I think, just pushing the pawn. Actually, I think I'll just keep pushing the pawn. And after here, then here. And then again, say my opponent plays something random. And now I move the rook, then move this pawn, then move this pawn, and then move the rook. And this is a an idea called self-propelled pawns that I recently learned about in Dvoretsky's endgame manual. And essentially, no matter what, these pawns will promote. And all I need to do really is just block these pawns from queening on the queen side. Um, yeah, instead my opponent plays this move, which is a horrible move. This move is horrible. He has to keep the rooks on in this position. With these connected pass pawns, like I said, they're very, very strong, especially in just king pawn endgames, which you'll see because I play this move to trade rooks, and now my opponent has to stop these pawns. These pawns are queening, and so um, he plays this more as a waiting move. But this pawn is running down the board. Here, okay, he can come here, but now I'm just picking up this pawn, and again he's got to pick up this pawn, and it's just not in time. Maybe he comes here, and if he tries coming this way, again I'm just picking up these pawns, and he's got to pick this pawn up, um, or else it just queens as well. And yeah, this is just a completely one end game. These pawns are both promoting, or at least one of them is anyway. Um, yeah, so he couldn't do that, and so instead my opponent comes here and comes c4 check. That's fine. Like his king is pretty much tied to this square, as we know. My uh, this pawn is just going to promote. If he moves king here, then he's not able to catch this pawn as it runs down the board. And so he comes here, just pushing these pawns, and I come g5, and he's got this move b5. I come here again. He can't take because if takes, then this pawn just promotes. So he comes here, and now I had to be a little bit careful because I felt like there could have been a breakthrough. And in fact, this move, um, this move is actually a horrible move for me. Which in the post-match analysis, my opponent said, "Oh, you could have just played uh, b6 and just locked everything off here." And I pointed this following variation out to him, where oh, yeah, after b6. Um, after a4, and then if I try and come and just pick this pawn up, now he's got this move. And rather hilariously, actually, all of these pawns are actually completely stopping my king. And so my king can't move. If I take this pawn promotes, and his king actually does quite a good job at guarding these pawns here. And again, there's nothing I can do to stop this pawn from promoting. And yeah, it's just quite a like quite a funny variation really, where I can't play a move here. I'm in complete zugzwang. Where if I come, if it was his move, maybe he'd just come king here and make it my move. Like his king can do this forever. Whereas, what would you play here if you were black? Maybe like here just loses. Um, yeah, any king move loses as well, and so this is just completely lost. So I'm very glad that I saw that and didn't play that. Yeah, so instead I come king here, and this is again just completely winning. I've managed to calculate um, uh, a different line. So in the game, my opponent plays this, which just allows king here, and then I just mop up these pawns essentially. And in this position, he resigned. But I think the more critical line in this position was this A4, because now it looks as though he might be able to get a breakthrough with this. And I was quite worried about this because it felt as though he was able to get a breakthrough. But what I calculated was H7, and my opponent has to take the pawn, just simply, or else it queens. And now I come here, and after this move breaking through, I had to take here because if I just continue like this, then he gets this move, and after here and here, I can't. I don't actually have this checkmate because his queen protects it, and so in this position, I would have to take, and after takes, now in this position, um, after here, and queens. Now I've got this move checkmate, and his queen doesn't protect it, and this is just checkmate. And so in this position here, when he came here, I basically figured that out, and it was completely fine for me to come king here, and that I essentially just had a forced checkmate in this position. Now, yeah, that was essentially the game. As I said in the game, my opponent played c5, and I was able to just mop up the pawns. And in this position, he resigned. The game in total, it was a very, I don't know, it was a very topsy turvy game. Like I said, I thought I had the advantage way earlier in the game. Like even at the opening, I felt like this position here, I had the advantage. And yeah, I missed a few opportunities, like here, for example, to just completely win. Um, and yeah, just trap my opponent's bishop. I missed that. But yeah, I felt as though in the position around here it was kind of drawn, and when he offered the draw in this position, like I said, I felt I had to do something to create a bit of play, and I'm very glad that it turned out how it did, and that um, it just goes to show that the recent endgame study that I've been doing has actually really been helping. Not in this position because this position is not actually great for me, but in this position, the computer actually gives this as -1 for me, so a slight edge, and it was very comforting knowing in this position I knew to trade off rooks, and this is just completely winning. Here the computer's giving a huge advantage, -5 already, and these pawns, like I said, I knew they were just going to run down the board and be a huge advantage for me, and I was just able to take these pawns. And so, yeah, more of the story: practice your end games. It can be quite boring, but end games are very very important. And here it saved me a lot of time trouble, as my opponent got into quite a bit of time trouble as well, and I was able to play moves with a lot more confidence than my opponent because simply I just knew what I was doing. So yeah, that's a lesson. Now, thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this um, playthrough of me going through my game. Yeah, be sure to check out the vlog that I've done on the whole tournament. It was a very enjoyable experience for me. And yeah, check out the other games that I will be doing as well. Well, by the time this is uploaded, all of the other ones will also be uploaded, and you can check them out. You can watch them in time with the vlog, or you can, I don't know, do what you want, not watch them at all if you don't really care. Doesn't really bother me. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. If you want to level up your chess with me, alongside me, with me teaching you, is what I meant to say, then be sure to check out the top link in the description. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and goodbye.